Hello and welcome to Dialogue. I'm Yang Rui in Beijing. This year marks the 150th anniversary of Sun Yat-Sen's birth. Not only are people in China celebrating the anniversary, but also ethnic Chinese who live abroad are taking part in memorial activities. Why has Sun Yat-sen been so widely respected for so many years? What's been the impact of his three principles on the people of China? And what's the future of cross-strait relations under Sun Yat-sen's legacy? To discuss these questions and more, I'm joined in the studio by Gregory Yinan Zhang, Taiwan Affairs commentator, and Professor Wang Hui from Tsinghua University. But before we get started, let's look at this.
Sun Yat-sen, born on November the 12th, 1866, was one of the most important political figures in the history of modern China. Sun led the revolution of 1911, which overthrew the Qing dynasty and put an end to over 2,000 years of feudal monarchy in China. He was appointed to serve as provisional president of the Republic of China when it was founded in 1912. But he quickly resigned due to opposition from warlords whose vested interests were threatened. He continued his fight with the warlords and co-founded the Kuomintang, or the Chinese Nationalist Party, serving as its first leader. He brokered a fragile alliance between the Kuomintang and the Communist Party of China in the 1920s, and the two parties worked together in the northern expedition against the warlords in an effort to unify the country. Sun Yat-sen is revered as the father of democratic revolution in China. Sun's philosophy, honed over many decades, boiled down to three principles of the people: nationalism, democracy, and people's livelihoods. Sun passed away at the age of 58 on March the 12th, 1925. According to his wishes, he was buried in the Purple Golden Mountain of Nanjing, the city where the provisional government was founded after the 1911 revolution. One notable visit to Sun Yat-sen's mausoleum was in 2005, when Taiwan's Kuomintang chief Lian Chan paid a historic visit to the mainland. Recently, the Kuomintang's chairwoman, Hung Siu-chu, also visited the mausoleum during her stay in the mainland. She expressed the wish that Sun's legacy could contribute to the peaceful development of cross-strait relations in the future.
1, 2, 3!
Sun Yat-sen is not only honoured by both the Kuomintang and the Communist Party. At the 150th anniversary of his birth, ethnic Chinese who live abroad are also taking part in memorial activities.
Welcome to Dialogue, gentlemen. This is, of course, a very good opportunity to take a second look at the huge impact that Dr. Sun Yat-sen has delivered to the nation-making of China for perhaps both sides of the Taiwan Strait. We start from you. What do you think of the deep influence that he has delivered?
Dr. Sun Yat-sen, of course, has a reputation that cannot be disputed. For example, he was the one to overthrow Qing dynasty, to establish the first republic in Asia, and his contribution is recognized worldwide by people on both sides of Taiwan Straits. The question is, nowadays China is facing a different mission, so to speak, unification of China and many other tasks. So his greatness is extremely remarkable, so we have to hopefully learn from his teachings and do the right thing at this time.
What do you think are the most influential teachings and doctrine of Dr. Sun Yat-sen that may have shaped the perceptions about China and perhaps why we respect him?
Let's start it from your second part, the second question about why we respect it. As Mr. Zhang already said, that first of all, he was the founder of the Republic of China. That's the means modern China.
And the first in Asia.
First in Asia, and the first republic in Asia. And the second, I think that he started from a leader of the national revolution, but after the establishment of the Republic of China, he put forward the slogans for the unification of different ethnic groups, that the Republic of 5 ethnicities, that the first idea of the unified China as a modern country. That I think second. Third one, I think he mobilized outside of China. He lived in Honolulu and Hong Kong and also Northern America. So he had a huge, and Southeast Asia, huge
he spent some
impact.
time in Japan as well.
Yeah, Taiwan, and also in Europe. So the overseas Chinese, a lot of the overseas Chinese saw him as a symbol of modern China. So these are the first, the aspect. The second, I think that he was the leader that promote from 1923 to 1924 the union between the two political parties, the KMT and the Communist Party. That was the first the union between the collaboration between the two parties. So I think that give the legacy. Third one, I think he had certain kind of the theory about the future of China. That we know that he was a three people's theory that. Not only about the national revolution, but also political revolution for promote the political culture of democracy. At the same time, he really promote the idea of the redistribution of land. That we talk about the livelihood and so on, so social equality. I think that he highly emphasized that value and try to put forward some concrete economic policy. In his days, maybe it's not successful, but still, up to now, we still face some issues that he raised. So we can see the continuation from different stages of modern China.
A major issue of a major immediate significance for both sides across the Taiwan Strait is a possible third cooperation between the KMT and the Communist Party of China. How do you see this? Is it possible? Do you think the legacy of Dr. Sun Yat-sen is respected by the current ruling party in Ireland?
I do believe the third cooperation between the KMT and CPC is called for, but it's a challenge. The task cannot be easily accomplished. The Chinese expression is 任重道远. The responsibility is heavy and the journey is distant. Nevertheless, since Hong Xiuzhu visited in China last week, she had the chance to meet Xi Jinping and exchange ideas, also raised her concerns, and Xi Jinping also stated black and white the 6 proposals fighting against the tendency of Taiwan independence, re-established the necessity of having 92 consensus as a political base to work together, and also emphasize exchange across Taiwan Strait and eventually to make China strong. Nevertheless, I think the barrier, from what I can see, is there's a difference across Taiwan Strait to different social status and political systems. In the last 70 years or so, both sides have tried its best to develop its own governance system to make it work. But there's a difference. So they have to work out the differences, and hopefully they have a common goal to achieve following the wishes or the ideas left behind by Dr. Sun Yat-sen. For example, before he passed away, he uttered the word 和平奋斗救中国, peace struggle and save China. At the time, of course, peace means to have no wars among the warmongers in different provinces in China at the time. Now, this peace applies to peaceful settlement across Taiwan Strait. The struggle means that this goal cannot be achieved easily because of the barriers, misunderstanding, and lack of trust. So I think both parties have to try hard to get that done. Plus, they have to accommodate DPP in Taiwan because DPP is now in charge. You cannot ignore DPP and say, let's do it just by 2 of us. Then of course, the final goal to save China, what type of China is that? They follow the people's principle or universal love or peace, equality. So that is a great challenge. I think leaders on both sides of the street have to look at them very carefully and come up with plans of action, have short-term, mid-term, and long-range goals to achieve. I think not only people on both sides of the streets expect that to happen, but the overseas Chinese worldwide is looking at them with urgent expectations.
Dr. Sun Yat-sen is hailed as the father of democratic revolution in China. He is especially known for the three principles on the people. nationalism, democracy, and people's livelihoods. Well, nationalism is easier to understand, but democracy, I'm afraid, could have different interpretations, as different as perhaps what the One China principle actually represents for both governments across the Taiwan Strait. I'd like to have your analysis about the impact of the three principles.
First of all, I think now the three things, maybe even the nationalism is different in a different. For example, the DPP promotes certain kind of the nationalism in Taiwan, so it's different kind of the format of the nationalistic moment. Even in the later change to the early republic, you have the so-called small nationalism. It's also there was certain kind of different patterns of nationalism. What he started from a kind of the exclude the Manchu at the beginning as a target, but later he switched to the slogan of the Republic of Five Ethnicity, meaning promote a kind of the Great China to integrate the different ethnic groups into the people that let's say. So one of these, the approach, politically speaking, is what he called the democracy and the livelihood. I think is a political and a social agenda for him. Mm-hmm. It's in order to achieve the goals, you need the political and a social-economic approach. So even his understanding of the democracy was not the same as we did. Now we understood, like why I say, because even the political system in Taiwan, for example, the examination system and so on and so forth, is different from the American political systems. Later in the communist movements, they also took over the slogans of the democracy, not simply gave it up. So there was certain kind of the continuities in between. So that's why Mao promoted a new democracy, but it is very different. But certain kind of the similarities, for example, redistribution of land, promoted the social equality, and so on and so forth. That goes, I think, much overlap.
Do you think there is any connection between President Xi Jinping's appeal for rejuvenating China and what Dr. Sun Yat-sen calls for?
I think that term is very broad, applied rejuvenating China or make China strong again. One of the things promoted by Xi Jinping, which is quite clear, is this so-called four comprehensives. They talk about rule of law, talk about deepen reform, talking about discipline for the party members, and then achieve a moderate state of economic prosperity. I think that is a very narrow objective, but it aimed primarily in domestic issues. I think Dr. Sun Yat-sen's approach in the past, almost 100 years ago, was very fascinating. For instance, he had these three policies, talk about to unite Soviet Union, communists, and also the working class, which is a very broad mandate approach, because when you talk about Russia, it's actually international community today, not just that one nation. Whichever nation is friendly to China can work with China as partners or whatever together. They should be included in this effort. Then, of course, talking about the communists, talking about actually all parties within the country itself. Then, last of all, you have to use the whole potential strength of the nation, including working class. It's a pity, I believe, after 1949, the victory of the end of the Second World War, and Chiang Kai-shek was too ambitious. He tried to take it all and have it all. So he has lost the best chance, golden chance whatsoever, I believe, to unite China, accommodate not only Communist Party but other parties into the system, to make China a real sense democracy in name and reality. So he passed that chance. Now I think mainland China, CPP is facing a similar challenge. Now this is much stronger. So I'd like to say this time to do it right, to come everyone into the same camp, to do things right. I hope that's true.
Professor Wang, how come that Dr. Sun Yat-sen got the vision and the guts to align China with Russia, despite the misery of our history with the Tsar?
So it was the new Russia, clear, that they were abolished equal treaties with China. And also in 1923, the Soviet Union also claimed that they will not support the independence of Out Mongolia and so on and so forth. That basically, I think that among the so-called Western powers, though it's not all the real treaties were actualized, realized, but at that time it's only big power and the big country, our neighbors, that claim that they will give up those equal treaties, that made Russia were attractive to not only Sun Yat-sen but also a lot of the Chinese intellectuals from different, even the different political parties. That's why in 1924, for example, Sun Yat-sen made the very famous speech in Kobe. It called for the Asianism, included that the Russian was included into that great community. They thought it's a different the nation. I think that his generation, you know, that his early experience in Hong Kong, Macau, and also in Japan and in London, he was arrested in so he know that how that the relationship between China and those big powers. So he, at that time, he admired that. So I think that made the possibility. Made that the collaboration possible, the three policies that he issued was based on that historical experience.
Thank you very much. You are watching Dialogue with Gregory Inen Zhang and Professor Wang Hui. We are discussing the legacy of Dr. Sun Yat-sen to commemorate his 150th anniversary. We'll be back in a short while. Please stay with us. Come back. On July the 7th, 1942, the United States issued a commemorative stamp with Dr. Sun Yat-sen together with President Abraham Lincoln. Why did the U.S. put these two great leaders together on the same stamp?
There's a Chinese expression, 英英所见略同. We're all heroes, same ideas, we admire each other. President Lincoln, of course, was one of the great presidents of the United States, other than Washington Roosevelt. He was the one to unite the United States to abolish the slavery system. On top of that, he also did many other things marvelous for United States. For example, to the land grant to universities established. He reformed the tax code. He set up the Department of Agriculture. So his idea was great, universal love and peace and equality. On this side, of course, on our side in China, we have Dr. Sun Yat-sen. So he has his promotions. He has his contributions. For example, he's not a man of action, but a man of ideas. He has this national reconstruction master plan, including the socialism, including the psychology, including the industrialization. These three tasks until today still remains to be achieved. So what we have to do, we have to look at his teachings and digest it carefully and give the modern definition to see how, to what extent that will apply to Xi Jinping in China today to do the job well. So I do believe the United States had a reason to have the coin issued to memorize these two great men together. And at this time, of course, United States and China are still good friends. So hopefully they can interact with each other, to benefit each other, to make the world a better world to exist.
What do you think of the relevance of putting Dr. Sun Yat-sen together with Abraham Lincoln?
That I agree with.
You fully agree with it?
Yes, almost. And also we need to note that the timing of that 1942, that was during the wartime. That was the year when the Japan attacked America too. So that was a kind of the collaboration between China and America. They saw the republics, the democracy. One is in Asia, another in North America, and they are independent from the imperial domination. That was thought, in later Qing Revolution, a lot of revolutionaries admire America because they are struggle for its own autonomy and independence from the dominant colonial powers. So that's kind of the we can read a lot of documents, literature documents to talk about the American experience too.
We were allies during the Second World War. What will be the same threat that can put the United States and China together today, so that one day President Xi Jinping's portrait will be put together with, I'm sorry, I'm not going to say Donald Trump, but maybe his successors.
You mean today?
In the foreseeable future, what will be the common challenge? Climate change, terrorism, what is it that may bring our two great nations together?
I'm extremely optimistic, regardless who's in charge on the other side, White House. For example, now Donald Trump is in charge, because there are overlap across the Pacific Ocean between two countries. Many things have to done together. They have no other choices. You mentioned weather change.
What Gregory suggests actually is that the Pacific Ocean is big enough to accommodate the needs of China and the United States. The United States remains a Pacific power. Professor Wang, Russia was one of the key elements that Dr. Sun Yat-sen decided to align itself with. What's the current relevance? I mean, despite the comprehensive strategic partnership between Moscow and Beijing to combat back to Asia, a strategy of the Obama administration, what do you think will be the? What do you think of the cohesion that brings Russia and China together today?
I think partly the sequence of the American foreign policy, partly that was the sequence, because at the beginning both sides, I mean the Russia and China didn't claim that we will form a coalition. That, and also the Russia is not the Soviet Union. China is no more the China in the 1950s, 60s. That's quite different. And basically geopolitical consideration, it's crucial, I think, that the elements in these kind of the alliance. That also remind that the kind of the wise policy from the American side was quite important, because these kind of the relationship was really harmful, not only for China, but also if that overall hawkish to push that, I think not only for China, but also for Russia.
Professor Wang, what do you think of the contemporary political sloganeering of three generations of communist leadership, starting from perhaps Jiang Zemin, the three represents, namely the Chinese Communist Party represents the highest level of productivity, advanced culture, as well as the fundamental interests of the broadest sense of a general public. Now, do you think these can be drawn in parallel comparison with the three principles of the people, by people, the whole people, Abraham Lincoln, so to speak?
In the level, let's say that more or less the abstract level, it sounds quite overlapped. It's a lot of the similars. What I concerned was that how, for example, when even for the Sun Yat-sen, he talked about the working class, that the policy, the third policy. Now we are not necessarily reuse these terms, but certain kind of lower social strata and their powers and their rights, and whether or not we can have a real more equal, let's say, the society. And basically, I think that the value of people is a modern value of people, which made the China, Republic of China, either the Republic of China or the People's Republic of China, as a new China, is a modern China. This is a basic value. And now the challenge, I think the universal challenge, not only for China, but also you look at yesterday, the election, the rupture between the elites and the popular, no matter what kind of political orientation, but these kind of detachment between the so-called elites and the popular level was really obvious. And in our society, we I sometimes feel alarmed by the rupture of these political, let's say, you can see the function of the political system, but you can also see that not simply reach the lower levels. So that how integrated the society and the made the policy and still put the people as the core value. I think it's the big challenge for us.
Representation of the people, that's been a key issue.
Yes.
For whatever administration of the Communist Party to exercise good governance. This is an issue for developing nations. What do you make of the capability of the Communist Party to reconstruct itself and navigate a course independently, which may not be a repeat of the American dream?
Let me put it this way. I think democracy is a system, hopefully, to accommodate the wishes of all people, regardless of the background, the sex, or ethnic identity. That's an ideal, but it has to have a form to get it done. I think two things you cannot escape. One is election, second is freedom of speech. Because with the freedom of speech, people can speak their minds forcefully and without reservation, and knowing that they're protected by the Constitution. I think that's why Xi Jinping also mentioned that in China, Constitution comes first. That means that it's beyond the party, beyond individual leaders. So this is something can never be changed. With the possibility of having rooms to mention ideas, you have a chance to examine them carefully, and hopefully through the common wisdom to come up with a better solution. The second one is voting system. That is also essential. If the people at the bottom can decide who is the boss, that's much better than someone else on the top decide who is following him. So these are the challenges.
I'm afraid American people made a different choice today. Half choose Hillary Clinton, the other half an angry and rebellious Donald Trump. Currently, people in up to 20 cities throughout the United States broke out in anger and protest against Donald Trump. They say, he is not our president. I mean, the country is so divided as a result of it. Do you think democracy, which itself should not be questioned for whatever integrity it represents, should be a notion that helps shape the governance of the Chinese?
Yeah, the basic value of democracy, I think it's very great. It's more universal in a sense, but how to reach that different ways. First of all, it's you need to back to the historical condition to think that the different ways properly to deal with different issues. Second, I think we need to consider, especially, not use the historical backgrounds as an excuse, but truly faced the new challenges for the political systems. I think like the election issues, that the manipulation of media, manipulation of polls, and the manipulation of the campaign system.
Are you suggesting that I should lose my job?
No, I'm not talking about, but these are really everywhere. You can find these kind of the issues. You can find these new elements that, of course, there was already in the 19th century these kind of developments, but now that's really different because the kind of different interests penetrated the different corners that created a real public space difficult. That when we talk about the real dialogue, different ideas, debates, and so on and so forth, not simply by distorted, right? We can see that yesterday I read the Paul Krugman's essay. He talked about how he was lost because not only his essays but the media, the New York Times, and also they lost. I think that they don't know how to reach the people. Then how can improve the gap.
In what amounts to a major revolution, a devastating revolution for American politics. Elite media may have been dismissed, may have been totally fired by the uprisings of the grassroots people. With that, we come to the end of this profound discussion about the legacy of Dr. Sun Yat-Sen to commemorate his 150th birthday. I'll see you next time. Until then, goodbye.